because we are designers, we want to design. We're not
Exactly.
marketeers. I was, I'm not now because I left it and don't want to do it.
Hello and welcome back to FCI London Podcast, where we sit down with some of London's most influential luxury designers. I am your host, Imke Du Toit, and today I am joined by none other than Nicholas Sunderland, founder and creative director of NS Interiors. Established in 2001, Nicholas' studio delivers bespoke residential and commercial interiors across London and the Southeast, blending contemporary design with highly personalized client briefs. Known for clean spatial lines and balanced color palettes and his integration of Feng Shui principles, Nicholas creates interiors that are both functional and harmonious. Nicholas, it is an absolute pleasure to have you here today and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So, Nicholas, we're just going to jump in a little bit, look at the designer behind the studio. I mean, with over 2 decades of shaping interiors, do you believe the industry has evolved to be more design-led, or is it now increasingly driven by marketing?
Well, it's an interesting question because originally, before being an interior designer, I was in the marketing industry. And in those days, it was very, very different. So when I moved into interior design, which is quite a complicated story, but I moved into interior design via a marketing agency that I set up, and the interior design aspect of it took over. And at that time, there was no Google. There was nothing else out there other than you advertised in magazines or you created an email campaign and set that up. So for me to start my interior design business, I literally created a database of emails, sent them out on a Sunday evening and got my first call first thing Monday morning. And I started my process of designing at that point the barristers' chambers. And it was a very, very simple process of running a business and marketing. You just phone people up, you put an advert in local magazines or newspapers, and you got to work through that and with referrals as well. But it didn't take too long, sort of early 2000s, that Google and every other search engine started coming online. People started searching for interior designers. And the marketing side of it, I think, has taken over far too much from what it was in 2001 to how it is now in 2026. We are constantly having to market ourselves through social media. You can put an advert out, nobody's really going to see it. I think magazine advertising has died. So you're spending, in reality, half your time marketing yourself and half the time trying to claw in all those leads to get the work in. And with Instagram, if you're not seen in the first few seconds or you haven't got something of interest, they pass you by. And originally, if you put a magazine advert out there, you could show people pictures, they'd be reading it, they'd be viewing it, probably for a couple of minutes, see what they like, and then they get in touch with you. Now it's a hard slog to balance marketing and designing. So you either have to do it yourself out of hours, if there are such things, or you get a marketing agency in to do all the SEO and social media for you. And that's not cheap, and not everybody wants to do it. And they still require a lot from you. So a long answer to a short question, I think the marketing side of interior design is dominating purely for the fact that there are so many people out there now that you've got to attract, that if you don't do the marketing, you're not going to get the work. So that is up here as opposed to the time spent
Absolutely.
designing it. It's a nightmare.
Absolutely agree. It's expanded exceptionally quickly as well. I mean,
Yes.
as you mentioned, since the early 2000s to now, just the level and the scope and the amount of different platforms available, especially within the marketing space and marketing of any business. And as you
Yes,
mentioned,
that's
it's
right.
vitally important to get that out there. So
Yes.
the going back to basics is actually very needed because, as you mentioned, but chasing your leads becomes secondary to just trying to market on every platform and as quickly as possible and grabbing the attention of people.
Yes.
It is very interesting. So at the moment you're saying as well, it's a lot more still marketing, heavy at the moment. Hopefully it will start getting balanced, which should be
That's right.
great. And as you mentioned, being able to have your time separated really nice between marketing and going back to what you need to do, and which is the design
Yes,
work,
yes, yes.
you know,
Because we are
overall.
designers, we want to design. We're not
Exactly.
marketeers. I was, I'm not now because I left it and don't want to do it. But now I'm back doing it. Still got the
Yes.
skill in theory, but it's changing so much you can't keep
And
up with
so
it.
rapidly as well.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
what a phenomenal skill as well, I think, to have. I think it's fantastic if you have the skills in marketing. It really does help out. But it's, I think, as you said, it is vitally important to know how that balance is going to eventually be found. Yeah. Okay. Well, moving on a little bit, I mean, many designers claim they listen to clients. In reality, how often do you think clients actually know what they want when they first walk in?
Well, this is a little bit controversial, and I've got to be very polite. Clients come to you because they need your services. They're developing a property, they're designing a few rooms, whatever it is, they don't know how to do it. So they ask you how to do it. So you have to listen to what the brief is. Unfortunately, sort of going back briefly to the Google aspect of it, Google is now there for people to go out there and find out a great deal themselves. So the clients often come to us with no knowledge of what they want. We have to listen to them to see what that brief is. And unless we do that, we can't really progress in designing the property for them. They have their own ideas because they do research before they come to us anyway. And I would say that's 100% of the case. Everybody comes with an idea, but not how to do it or how to make it work in their own environment, because millions, billions of pictures out there showcasing beautiful homes that are 3, 4, 5 times the size of the one they've got. So how can we make that work in our environment? So listening, recording, writing, noting is very, very important. And it doesn't matter how strong you are on your opinion of how it should look. The client isn't necessarily always right because you're advising, but you've got to take on board what they say. If they say, I want a green wall, and you think, oh, God, I hate green walls, that's your personality going into it. So you say, welcome the green wall. And you look at a way of actually introducing that green wall that doesn't look like a greengrocer's from the 90s. So listening is very, very important. And if you don't do that, you're going to fail as a designer, I feel.
Absolutely agree with you. And as you mentioned as well, I mean, you are there to advise, you there to guide them based on, you know, their ideas and what they want and the inspirations they bring forward to you,
That's
with the
right.
job of the designer to making sure that that becomes a reality within real time as well. I think
Yes.
it's fantastic that you're saying as well, making sure that there's transparency, making sure things are recorded, because as you said, it is vitally important to also, I think, look at also for designers point of view as well, that you don't come across missing something. As you mentioned, there's ever changing in the works consistently as well, that you as a designer also don't lose track of what the client mentioned because of all the moving parts. What aspect of the design process do clients rarely see, but would be utterly shocked to discover just how complex it is truly? We've now just sort of touched on it a little bit, where someone thinks that they know a little bit more about the construction side and
Yeah.
possibly
Yeah.
then realizes they don't know as much. I mean, what aspect of that design process, I mean, do they not really see as much and would be shocked to discover just how complex it is?
Well, I think that the biggest thing really is when you get into 3D renditions and walkthroughs, because everybody assumes that they're very quick, very easy, and don't cost anything. You're designing, so let's have a look at it like that anyway. We don't design in that way. I design in a partial 3D format for layouts and giving them a sort of very basic idea of what's what. But they all want what you can see on television. All these programs give you virtual reality. They put these headphones on and they're sitting in their new home, and that's what they expect. And when you point out the cost involved, because they think, well, why did it cost me? The length of time it takes because of the complexity of it. And that's always the first shock. And I say to them, okay, if you want this, half your budget's gone already. And it's, what do you mean? And that's what they don't understand. They don't understand the complexity of creating these 3D, these walkthroughs. The virtual realities are a nightmare. It's not a simple case of, oh, okay, well, you've done it. I like that chair, but I don't like the shape, don't like the color, don't like this. Let's change it. You don't just slot one in. You've got to go through a whole different process. So I think collectively, as clients and designers, I think that is the one thing a client doesn't understand. They also don't appreciate how long it takes to really design something effectively to a brick. because you've got a brief, you've got a budget. You've always got a budget. Even if they say, "Oh, I don't have a budget," as soon as you hit a certain market, that's gone over budget, and we haven't got one.
Yes, absolutely. There's always a price tag limit at one point.
That's right, and you've got to be aware of that. Even if there is no budget, you've got to be thinking, "Okay, I've got to be cost effective on this because I
Yes.
want to do more and more and more."
I absolutely agree, as you said as well, as they don't really understand the complexity of creating, like as you mentioned, the 3D models for them to see it
Yes,
like what you see on TV. But at
yes,
the same time as well, the amount of time it actually takes to design and the amount of times you have to start
that's
over,
right,
you know,
that's right.
back away a little bit, relook at
Yes,
something, as you mentioned, to be as cost effective as possible, to give them more
that's right.
options if required.
Yes,
But I do agree, and as you mentioned as well, people saying I don't really have a budget, but there's always a budget at the end of the day.
all of a sudden
Like,
I have one.
always a price tag limit at some
Yes,
point. you
yeah,
know.
there is.
I mean, I think it would be a designer's absolute dream to be able to design with a budget that's completely open ended. Okay, well, let's move a little bit into, space and energy and looking a little bit at design philosophy. I mean, you've introduced Feng Shui into modern British interiors, a practice still somewhat misunderstood in the UK. I mean, what's the biggest misconception wealthy homeowners have about spatial energy and layout?
Well, I think the misconception is down to the misunderstanding of what Feng Shui is all about. I started training in this in the early 90s when there was very little out there to understand. Again, you couldn't go online and find these things. So you had to find the book. And it was a very, very small book that got me introduced into Feng Shui. Very simple, very thin book, great pictures and drawings in it, and I started following the drawings and skipping pages, not reading it, to enhance my life because it was something, the whole esoteric lifestyle that was of interest to me. So feng shui was something else, but I didn't know just how big and important it was. And when I started training in feng shui and working within the industry, which was beginning to grow from the mid 90s, it was still very much an unknown system. I was part of a group of people who extended the knowledge of feng shui, me very, very lightly because I still wasn't sort of qualified in the system, but I was learning both in the UK and then the Far East in master training. But it came out with such a force into the UK marketplace. I was part of the people who created a design magazine based on feng shui and interior design, which was a massive launch across Europe. And, that suddenly made people think about feng shui. And, they stopped thinking about it around about 2000, 2001. I think because there was so much of it out there, people started thinking it was a fad and it wasn't something serious. Now, the fact that today there are certainly 2 to 3 billion people at least who follow the teachings of feng shui, and it isn't all about trinkets, three-legged toads, statues, choosing, several gods to go into your home. It was all Oriental. I think that's what put people off, certainly in the West. When I was fully trained and I could do surveys, as I call them, I was traveling the world, working with people in very large houses, palaces in some situations that were huge. And they all said, "Well, we've got this beautiful home. It's got enormous rooms. We've got an entrance hall that's, you know, big. I mean, it's like sort of village halls. They were so big. You just walked into this space." Well, they thought that was good because that was the little amount they knew about energy of feng shui. They knew a bit about it, a little bit like earlier, little knowledge is a dangerous thing. So spatial awareness in feng shui is um, very different to people's understanding. If you imagine you've got a big house, you've got a double door entrance into the home. It's a big open staircase going up several floors, very little furniture. You open the door on a windy day, you get this huge blast of energy, of chi going into the home, probably bringing in leaves. They're going into all the different doors that are open. And that energy is too much. It's overbearing, it's overpowering. And the whole point of spatial awareness and energy in a home is to slow it down, to make it calm and to make it an acceptable form of energy. So you're not literally going like that as you open the door. That's bad energy. Got to slow it down. And that's what people didn't understand particularly. It was, I've got a big house, I've got lots of big space, I've got great feng shui. You haven't. That is wrong. That is so wrong. Using feng shui now in the way I do and always have done, even before I set up my interior design business, doing feng shui surveys in people's homes, I was actually redesigning the home for them, which is how it got me into this process. And changing positions of furnitures. Yes, people ridicule that. You move your sofa, you've got good feng shui. You've also got better spatial awareness. It's not just good feng shui. If you open the door and walk into the back of the sofa, that's bad. Walk into a room, you've got seating, gently laid out in the most appropriate way. That's good spatial awareness. But people didn't take that on board, and they stopped doing it because it was ridiculed. Still is to some degree on television. If it's a comedy program, somebody will sometime mention Feng Shui, and I move my biscuits in so my Feng Shui is better. It's that sort of thing. Um, why I set up the training school to teach people how to use Feng Shui in interior design in a positive, non-ridiculed way.
As you mentioned as well, it is all about research and understanding it and
It
going
is.
and reading up about it. Because I think that's also, I think it's quite valid with a lot of different things that are considered trends or fads in a lot of ways. And it's mostly because it comes from not really understanding or not researching into really understanding what it is or what the purpose
That's
is.
right.
Nicholas, if you walked into a £10 million London home that looked perfect but felt uncomfortable, I mean, what was the first hidden mistake you'd expect to find?
Okay, if I'm viewing a property, whether it's design or my first visit, I do this instinctively now. Whenever I approach a property, I look at the surrounding. It's what we call form school or landscape feng shui. Now, what's going on outside a home affects what's going on inside a home. So I have a look around. I might have an idea that something's not quite balanced. I walk in, and yes, if I feel uncomfortable, it doesn't give me a welcome feeling. I'm talking about years of interpreting this for myself so I can see these things. So outside first, inside, then looking and see what's going on in that entrance. Is it clear? Is it too big? Is it cluttered? Is it too shiny? Big marble floors everywhere. So energy literally scoots across the floor and goes off in different directions. Is there a big staircase that's going to spiral the energy straight upstairs and not be on the ground floor? And I think one way of understanding how this works on an individual level is when you walk into a room and there's a number of people, number of seats, and people say to you, "Oh, welcome, take a seat." We all instinctively look around to see which chair we want to sit in to make us feel comfortable. And that's a normal thing to do. And you might walk right the way across the room. It might be in a corner, it might be at the back, it might be right at the front, but you know where you're going to feel comfortable sitting. And it's the same when you walk into a property. What's going to make you feel comfortable? And looking at what's going on outside then inside to allow that energy flow to be at a level that is not going to knock you over or be overwhelming or disturb you. There might be a painting, a massive painting on the far wall, or it might be a mirror bouncing the energy straight back at you. So you've got this going on as soon as you walk in, hidden. You can't see that energy, but your mind can feel it at a very subatomic level. You can feel it.
That's very, very interesting. I mean, I'm going to try and test it out myself as well when walking into a property next, because we don't always think about it in that way, but you're absolutely right.
That's right.
You feel it, you can't really explain it, but as you mentioned, it's because something feels unbalanced within
Yes.
yourself because of something, as you mentioned, it comes down to how welcoming does the space feel
Yes.
and not so bombarded, which is very interesting. Let's look a little bit at, the industry and a bit of a reality check, my apologies, with regards to that industry. I mean, with supply chains, bespoke craftsmanship and international sourcing facing delays and rising costs, is fully bespoke becoming harder to justify to clients these days?
Depending on the brief, most clients want something that doesn't necessarily exist. It might only be simply having alcove units, but they want them fitted. So that's going to be bespoke. But is it an expensive bespoke? Probably not, because you can often have things made cheaper than actually buying existing or even adapting them. I know people who've had fitted wardrobes and they buy the carcasses from a well-known department store chain, and they use the carcasses but put different doors on them. That's bespoke. They're getting what they want, and it's probably not as expensive. But the bespoke market can be completely everything's made to order. Everything's made to a specific style and design. It's adapted. It's changed. You've got a designer in who's decided the exact layout of the wardrobes. It's all made to measure and built using beautiful products that nobody else has got. So no matter what you put in there, nobody else has got it, and that is fully bespoke. And you can do that if you've got the budget for it. And again, it's down to the budget and the client's understanding of how that works.
Sure.
Sometimes when you say bespoke, they're shocked. This is going to cost me a fortune. It doesn't often cost a fortune. That's a misunderstanding. And for some people, bespoke is choosing a sofa. The manufacturer can change the depth of the seat and the height and things as standard. There are lots of people that are doing that. And you choose a fabric from another supplier. So you've got something that nobody else has got because that supplier doesn't use that fabric. We've supplied it. Customers' own material is fairly standard and they've got something completely unique. And, their friends will say, well, where did you get that sofa? "Oh, I had it made." It's that sort of approach that I have to. But it is difficult to encourage people to go down that route because they think it's going to be very expensive. And if you do it right, if you plan it right, it's not. It might cost a little bit more depending on what it is, but that fraction increase in cost far outweighs the pleasure they will get out of it.
And having
And
something unique to them as well, which
that's right.
to me is
Yes,
always what bespoke should be. It's not always to be
that's
that
right.
it's a massive price tag, but it's something that's so unique to you. Doesn't matter where it is, could be something, and as you mentioned, take something and get it reupholstered with something else that you can't find and different things. Absolutely agree with that. In your experience, what matters more to high net worth clients today? I mean, originality or the reassurance that their home will retain a resale value? Because that's quite important, I think, especially with high net worth clients. Is it about having the most original space or reassuring that their homes will retain a resale value?
Yeah. Well, it's a very good and very important question because it's sort of half and half. They want this home to look absolutely stunning and beautiful. They want it as a showpiece to show off to their friends. They want people to walk in and think, wow, that's amazing. To get to that stage, you've got to spend money. So you've got to spend it wisely. So many of the clients say, okay, this is what I want doing. That's the budget. It's a lot. We don't want to waste it. And you've got to let them realize that by spending the money here, not there, by doing this, by doing that, you will increase the value of your property. And that isn't as safe as it was a few years ago. We've had a number of situations, particularly in prime London, where property prices have dropped and plummeted. Whether they ever reach the negative equity situation, we don't know. People would never say that, I've spent 100 million buying this and I spent 50 million doing it up. It's now only worth 75 million. I'll wait and then it will be worth 200 million. You don't know that. But first of all, they want a property that looks amazing. They want it to retain its value, and you've got to convince them that it will do that. And that's where the skill of a designer comes in by as we've said previously, in where you want to spend. Now, I had a client who bought a sub penthouse. The penthouse above was a couple of million more. The layout wasn't that great, but he bought the penthouse and he wanted to make his apartment look like the penthouse above. And it was never going to because the structure on the roof, which was part of the flat, actually not very good because it restricted views all over London. So I said, "Okay, we can make this work for you." And he was very cautious about money, very clever man, didn't waste any of it. So he wanted to make sure that what he was doing was going to make the people who couldn't get the penthouse above buy him. That was just as good. So we designed it accordingly, made some changes that were sensible, left those that weren't. So it was a mix of what he was getting. And for him, it was an investment, but he wanted it to look good for the 2 months a year he was going to stay there. He lived in the UK, but only lived in London for 2 months a year, staggered. So it wasn't even a 2-month period, it was 2 1 months. And he just wanted this showpiece, really, to let people know this is where I'm living. It's amazing. But he wasn't going to lose any of his money. So I designed it accordingly, changed a few things, left a few things, encouraged him to do, a few other bits and pieces that he hadn't thought of. And he had, along with the feng shui that he didn't know I did anyway, he had an amazing apartment that when he walked in, because he only visited twice anyway while I was doing it, and he came in and he looked around and he walked around, and he was a very bullish man. He spoke his mind. He wasn't aggressive, but if he didn't like it, he didn't like it, and that was it. Nothing was going to change his mind. So he walked in and looked around from room to room, and he had his partner with him, and she was looking around. We were standing in the main reception room, and he walked in through one of the other doors, and he said, "Well, I didn't know if you could, but you did." And that was his praise. And what happened was, because of what we did, because of how I designed it using the feng shui principles anyway, he lived there for the 10 months, not the 2 months, and only traveled away for 2 months. So he completely flipped because he was now, in his own mind, living in that London penthouse that he always wanted. And I check the prices every now and again if I'm, at loose end, like once a year, and check the value of the property. The penthouse doesn't come up for very much or very often, but his has grown, not in the thousands, the tens of thousands, but in the millions. So he's got a return on his investment. That's what he wanted, but he equally wanted something that was wonderful to live in. So much so, he actually lived in it.
That he
So,
actually decided to live there, which is what
yes,
that's I think that's an amazing kudos to you as a designer as well, is that to get him to flip to come and live there for
yeah,
10 months
that's
out
right.
of the year as well. But I think you hit the nail on the head with the question. What you're saying, it's such a balance between the two, that you want that original space, for you, and something that's, again, I think comes back to the word bespoke in some way, that it's,
Yes,
one thing in a million, but I think it's sort of ever growing as well, especially within the market of real estate, especially if
yes,
people are investing in it so often as well.
yes.
I mean, if we're looking at, clients and wealth and changing behavior, I mean, the prime property market in London is shifting. I mean, with overseas buyers, I mean, tax changes, the global uncertainty as well. I mean, are you noticing a difference in how international clients sort of approach home design compared to 5 years ago, if we're looking now at the international clients?
Well, even a year ago, things have changed. People are very, very cautious, and a lot of in the press we read that UK millionaires are leaving the country. They're taking their money with them. And what's encouraging outside high net worth individuals to come to the UK? We're not seeing that yet. Some people are completely untouchable, and they will always be there. But I think the vast majority of them are hardworking. They're raising their funds. They're raising money by hard work. They don't want to lose it. The UK was a safe place to be in. The feeling now is that it's not, and people are being very cautious about it. So those sort of projects aren't coming easily. They're talked about, but they're not actually starting. Waiting for the we're waiting for the next event to come through from the governments, from the international market. Politically, it's a very dangerous place to be in at the moment, and we just don't know. So people are cautious. If World War breaks out, doesn't matter how much money they drop, it's worthless. So to my mind, I keep saying, "Get on with it," Don't wait, just get on with it, make your mind up. We've got to carry on. We've all been through recessions. I don't think this is any different, just a different approach with different people. Recessions happen, we all bounce back. And if you're strong enough, you can bounce back now. Properties are going to be cheaper, so you're going to make more money later on. That £10 million house you might get for 8 million now, and in 3 4 years' time, it will jump the 10 and become 12. You've got to be very clever with your investment, and of course, it's their money, not ours. And all I can say, you know, through this podcast is don't wait, otherwise you'll never do anything. Be positive, keep going, build up your investment portfolio, and get back into the marketplace
Get
while
back into it.
it is still there.
Yes, absolutely. No, I'm still here. No, it's wonderful listening to you about that, because no, but it is, as you mentioned as well. I mean, it's nothing different to what it was a couple of years ago to what it is now. Everything's it constantly changes. There's so many different waves. Things go up, go down. And as you mentioned, as well as to to be there, to be in it, and as you said, take a chance on be clever with your investments as well, and not to wait and to do what it is that you're wanting to do.
Yes.
And I think that's sort of that mentality that needs to shift a little bit. I mean, do
Yes.
you believe British luxury clients are becoming more discreet in their interiors, opting for quieter luxury, or is bold statement design making a comeback? If we're looking at ever shifting and changing, things that happen within the industry and within life at the moment. I mean, do you believe luxury clients becoming more discreet in their interiors?
I think the luxury clients are becoming very much discerning. They don't want too much bling anymore. They're discreet. They're gentle in their approach. They can be forceful in certain areas of the property where they can make a statement, but the whole property isn't going to be big and loud. You get this in smaller properties. I mean, the trend now is for, very dark colored kitchens. If you've got a big property, a big farmhouse or something like that, that works quite well. In a smaller property, not. But if you're spending a lot of money, you want to show wealth and taste. And sometimes I think being brash with color is just going too far. Colors, yeah, experiment with colors, experiment with wallpapers and paint colors. By all means, do that because you can easily change that. Get yourself a black kitchen. You'll regret it the first time you turn your tap on. You will, because it will just look a mess. You'll have a team of staff cleaning it constantly. Dark kitchens are overbearing, um, make the rooms smaller. All these strong fittings that cost a fortune, because you look at sometimes 2, 3, 400,000 pounds for a kitchen that's grey, dark. Yeah. No, you can so easily go off it. I mean, if it's a trend, I encourage people away from it. If they insist, then I have to work with it. But if it's a trend, and I think the high net worths don't really follow trend, they just follow luxury and style. So as long as you've got brands on show, you know, if it's a throw over a sofa, then at least see the Versace label on it. That's what they go for. Subtle luxury, not strong blended colors everywhere. Personally, I love color, don't get me wrong. I love color, and where I can use it, I will use it. But if it's something that, you know, the Pantone color of the year, everybody goes off using that color. The following year, there's another one. Do you redecorate? No, you don't. You choose a color that works with it in design, and you work with that. If it happens to be a Pantone color from 2 or 3 years, great, use it. But trends come and go all the time, and they repeat. You've only got to listen to the music industry to see that. The music, absolutely, and now all you hear is music, which was my favorite time for music and life in reality. There was so much going on then, and the 80s music is being discovered by the younger set now who've never heard it, think this is amazing, and you think, "Great, good music." But it's like that with design, colors, patterns, um, manufacturers coming in and out of popularity. It's very fickle. It's a very fickle industry, but a very, very powerful industry. So I find that, yes, they're more subtle in their approach. They want to show wealth in a very soft and subtle way,
Mm.
not
I guess
bang.
also, yes. I guess also, I mean, it comes back to longevity as well, and something that can kind of stand the test of time a little bit, where the luxuries, that sort of luxury interior is timeless throughout a longer period, as you mentioned
Yes,
as
it
well.
is.
It's not following a trend. And
Yeah,
as you were mentioning, if you want a matte black kitchen, are you going to hate it within the next month or two? Do you redecorate and having to rethink about, are you going to be happy with that?
that's right.
So it's very interesting that you mentioned as well that it's the smaller properties that are doing the bold statements now.
Yes.
Do you think that comes with age? I know that's not really even part of the question, but I'm just kind of interested. Do you think that's because it's more of your younger clients doing the bolder statements pieces than your older generational clients?
It's more the sort of the young to mid-range, 30s, 40s, tend to go for bold statements. The younger ones don't have properties. And the older marketplace, I think it's more respectful and delicate in its approach. That's the way it's sort of that sort of mid-level. And I don't know if you know the program, I call it the Hollyoaks syndrome, because Hollyoaks TV program. All their rooms are sort of bright yellows and blues and everything's flashing. And I think that's encouraging that sort of age group to do the same. And it looks awful if you don't do it right. You know, if you get it right, it can look really good. But if it's everywhere, it's just like walking into some sort of horror museum.
Absolutely. What's one thing high net worth clients never say out loud, but every experienced designer knows to read between the lines? What would that be?
Well, we touched on it briefly earlier. It's, I can't afford it and I don't want to spend the money. It's all show. They're very wealthy people. They're perceived to be very wealthy. They might be facing bankruptcy through the next door, but they want to project a sense of great wealth and I can afford anything I want. So you start designing these things and you're always giving, budget updates as you go along. And then you see the sweat on the forehead and they might be able to afford it. They might be overstretching themselves. You don't know. But it's that thing that they don't tell you from the start that I don't want to spend more than this. I can't afford. And they don't tell you. You just have to look from them, the way they're reacting and oh, I'm not sure if I like that now. They briefed you on what you want. So you've gone down and you've come down that route. No, I don't think I like that.
It's a very, very sensitive situation as well. I mean, especially if you get too far into a project and then that comes to light as well. So again, comes back to our previous, discussion about certain things that clients don't always appreciate the amount of time and energy it actually takes as well. So I think it
Yes,
comes down to being as transparent and honest from the get go to make something work for both. But it's always a bit of it is a very, very fickle industry, as you mentioned as well,
it is.
from from what the client says and what they want, two very different things. Let's look a little bit at technology and AI. I mean, AI can now generate room concepts in a second. We discussed this obviously earlier when you're talking about like the 3D models. I mean, do you see that this is as a threat to design thinking or merely a tool will expose which designers truly understand space? Since there's so many AI generated tools that can be used, I mean, do you see it as a threat in the design thinking or more as a tool to expose designers?
I like AI. I've
Okay.
embraced it. I've come through a period of my life with no technology at all, and now I absolutely love the whole concept of it. When it came to designing in 3D, I fought it at first, but then found a program that was so good to use, and I've been using it ever since. In fact, I was the fourth person in the UK to actually buy the software. It was so easy, and I carry on using it. Not all the time. It has limits. Um, because then it's down to timing. So what I present to people as I'm designing is a very basic floor plan and 3D process that they understand, and invariably that's all they need. AI coming on the market less than 2 years ago has dominated almost everything. It's really down. I don't think we should be nervous about AI. I think we should embrace it. But I think we have to be very careful what we do with it. And it's not what we as designers do, it's what the rest of the world does with it that's problematic. But as designers, it will only create something at the moment what you feed into it. The more information you feed into it, the better the result that comes out of it. And yes, you can do that in a few seconds, and you've got a very basic rendering that you can show to a client. Now, if it's a complicated setup, there's a lot going on in the room. The software can only place these things in that location. It can't move it a fraction over because it's going to be bumping into another sofa or coffee tables knocking into a corner of a seat. They're the sort of things that come up when you generate these AI images. It's not perfect. There's no designer soul into it. And the more information you put in, the more it can do, but it's limited as to what it can actually absorb itself. So it's scouring the world, putting all this together for you in a minute maximum, and you've got a great drawing that you can show people. At a simpler level, when for a long number of reasons we had to decorate 2 rooms in my home before Christmas because of a insurance leak, I wanted to paint the doors black. They were glass. Never liked them, never bothered to change them. As designers, we don't. We look after everybody else, not ourselves. And I said to my wife, "I really want those doors black. They will look so much better." And she said, "Oh, no, I don't think so. That's going to look awful." So I took a photograph of them, loaded it into my app, changed the doors to black, walked over the room, showed it them. She said, "When did you do that?" I said, "I've just done it now." She could see the black walls looked amazing, so we painted them black. It's great for that sort of thing. Quick ideas to show a client, even in a meeting. We're having a discussion. I really don't know what to do with that wall. I'd like it. I'll say green again. So I take a photograph, change it green, show her. I said, "Don't really want that, do you?" No. It's a great system. Better systems are coming out all the time. A lot of them are free. It is getting better. We have to use it, but I still don't think it's going to take over real level from an interior designer, certainly not an architect. If an architect uses AI, I'm not stepping inside that building
Yes.
because it's so much
You
better to
don't
work with an
know what's
architect.
gonna happen, what
Yeah,
what
I know,
was miscalculated. I think
I
it
know.
actually comes to my next question. I mean, if you show an AI generated luxury interior right now, I mean, what flaw would you instinctively look for that the software still gets wrong? And I think it sort of comes to what you were saying now,
Yes,
like
yeah,
just now
everything
recently,
flashing
you know,
into each other.
yes, getting that space. I mean, they can look and the look will be fantastic, but doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work within
No.
that space in
I
real
th I
time.
think if you've got the right program and you're prepared to input the correct information for it, yes, you can have an amazing layout for within a day, that's for sure, with time off for lunch and afternoon breaks and so on, because it is so very, very fast. But it's what you put in, you get out. If you don't put it in, it's not gonna come out, and you don't let sofas sit so close to each other. You're working on a floor plan, so you've got to give measurements of where the chair sits, the table sits, where the light is, where the window light is coming from. You can do it. It's a lot cheaper and quicker. It's still time consuming, but it's still not going to get it right because there's going to be something till you go down this spiral. Keep it simple. It hasn't got the soul of the designer in it, because when we're drawing, when we're designing, when we're putting things together, even a simple mood board, you're moving things around, you're changing that fabric from one shade to another. AI doesn't do that. You just can't do it. So at the moment, I'm not worried. Ask me again next year.
But I guess it is what it is. I mean, a lot of different designers I've also spoken to as well. I think everyone's on the same page in terms of embracing it. We can't get away from it. It is
No,
here.
you can't.
AI is here. It is for us to use. I guess it's finding what works for you as an individual as well, because not everyone uses AI, especially within the design world, in the same way as everyone else. Okay, I mean, after 2 decades in the industry, I mean, what still genuinely excites you when a new project brief lands on your desk?
Simple answer to that is a new project because everything about it is new. The client's new, so I've got to build up relationships with new people. The project is entirely different. The location is different. The budget is different. The brief and style of that particular client is different. So everything is fresh. Every new project excites me.
I mean, and how wonderful to be able to be in a career where it is so ever changing, where nothing is the same. I think it's just such an everything's so memorable and different experiences, especially within the design world and obviously in the marketing world as well. Again, different clients, different, things that need to happen. And I think that's personally as well, it's what excites me about jobs that are ever shifting and changing. It's not so monotonous. Everything is just so different. And it's a new challenge all around. So I think it's a lovely way to state that what genuinely excites you is the new project that comes on your desk. If you could change one thing about how the interior design profession operates in the UK today, what would that be?
Ooh,
Bit of a hard one.
yeah, I thought about this. I think generally it's everybody else's impression of how important the interior design industry is, not just designers and architects and artists, but also the whole manufacturing industry, just how important we are for the economy more than anything else. We make people's lives better because we make them happier. I go that little bit further using my Feng Shui, which I'll mention again, because that's changing lives on a personal level. But, some people, when you say, what do you do for a living? I say, I'm an interior designer. You go, Mm, you know, well, I'm an engineer. I do this, I do that, and think, okay, up to about 2019, the revenue from the design industry was approaching £100 billion a year. Now, that's not insignificant. I don't know what they currently are. We had the COVID situation, which changed the industry revenue to some degree, but it's pounding away now. So it's probably well over 100 billion. Now, that's not insignificant. That's about 5% of the economy from one industry. And I would imagine it's way over 100 billion now. People need to respect that and understand how important we are to create the jobs that we do. Because an interior designer goes to wallpaper manufacturers, goes to furniture manufacturers, lighting, flooring, and all these industries rely on us to give them business. It just escalates all the way through. So it's not, we're not nurses or doctors, completely different thing altogether. But we do have a presence in the economy that's very, very significant. And I think if people, yeah, it is. We just want to be respected for that, really. And I think if we could have that, offering respect to the industry, it would elevate our importance out there. Um, Simple thing in reality. It's already there. It's just got to be recognized. Just got to be mentioned. I think at another level, I think it's the public that need respect for us as well. Everybody loves interior design. As soon as you mention it, oh, I always wanted to be an interior designer. Design this room, to do this. They'd start telling me what they've done in their homes while I'm at the dentist, we're having things probed down my throat. They all want to talk about it. Everybody loves interior design. That respect for us and the respect that we have in our years of training to get to that situation, I would say we've got to be loved by all. We've got to be respected by all. That, as we just said, government and legislation, they've got to understand who we are. Individuals need to know that, okay, just because you've got an interest in interior design, you can't just start up a business. You've got to be registered. You've got to know what it's all about and have respect for the industry as well as yourself. If you're serious, get out there and start learning. You can do it very, very simply. You can be an intern. If you've got an interest and a calling for design, start working within the industry to build up. Go on a course, do this, do that. Have respect for it and treat us with respect, really. I've worked in 3 different industries. I've worked in advertising and marketing, I've worked in publishing, and I've worked in interior design sector. And this is the only sector where I found that everybody, manufacturer and designer, have respect for each other. The others don't. It's cutthroat, completely cutthroat. And this is the only industry where I feel wanted, for any other word.
Very, very interesting thing to take away. I'm glad that you feel, a lot more at home and wanted within this space and this industry that you're in, because I do feel that's important as well, just for your own personal growth as a person as
Cheers.
well. Mm. And again, I think it comes back to people. It is within an industry where it is about relationships and the relationship you have with people, with your clients, with your suppliers, and being able to build on that. I mean, I think it just comes down, to my final question. I mean, when sourcing statement pieces for a project, as an example, what do you value most in a furniture partner? Would it be flexibility or innovation, or is there something else that comes to mind?
I suppose if I have to choose the order, innovation first and flexibility second, because they might come up with a completely innovative product. Can it work in a design or can it be adapted to work within the design? Whereas designers always looking for something new and something fresh and something different, because you want to pass that on into the marketplace and not only help the manufacturer, but highlight that you as a designer are completely up to date and fresh in the marketplace. You found this option. You haven't gone onto Etsy and found it, but you've sourced real manufacturers. Sorry, I didn't have Etsy because they produce great products. But from a piece of furniture, you want something that um, works with the design that's perhaps a little bit different. It's innovative by what they've done with that design. And so, yeah, that's the way I would go for it. And building up with that supplier to make it work for you. And if they say, really like that style of chair you've got, but it doesn't work in my space. And they've got to be able to say, okay, how big do you want it? It might cost, doesn't always come, free. Sometimes you've got to pay for it. And if the budget allows, you get that innovative product working in your design. So that's what clients want. That's what they come to us for. I certainly enjoy what I do, and
I'm
that's a
glad to
fact.
hear that. I guess that's what we all need to strive for, isn't it? It's being
Yes, yes, it is.
finding a space that you are able to do what you absolutely love and feel the most
Yes,
valued in, as what we were speaking about
that's right.
today. But thank you so much, Nicholas. It's been a really absolute pleasure having you with us and for sharing all of your thoughts and approaches to creating beautiful, balanced, and livable interiors, and obviously also bringing a lot of your insight into Feng Shui and the fact that you're bringing that into also an educational program and how you're growing that side of things as well. I've learned a lot as well just through our conversation. A lot of things that I've
Thank you.
taken away personally myself that I would like to go and put into practice and just to see for myself. So thank you so much as well, and thank you for all of your insights. It's been absolutely lovely chatting to you today.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. And
Thank you.
to, of course, all of our listeners and viewers out there, thank you so much for joining us on the FCI London podcast. Keep following and keep designing, and join us again as we continue our conversation with London's most influential luxury designers